All right, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to model floors, how to extract a skirting from a floor that you traced, and how to model a ceiling. And that's going to be it for this video. All right, so let's get started. So from the previous lesson, we modeled the walls. I showed you how to model the walls, and now we're going to isolate this wall geometry, and we're going to choose splines. We're going to go to splines, and we're going to choose line, and right click on this one, choose vertex. Right, this should be enabled. Okay, my interface is freaking out a little bit, so enable the snap, or you can use letter S, right, to enable it. And we're gonna just literally gonna start snapping to each vertex, right, like that. And later on, I'm gonna show you how to extract a skirting very fast, right? You can even use a skirting of your own profile if you want to. So this is a quick approach how to model the floors, and later on you can edit them in any way you want, right? So I'm just gonna snap it to the points. Whoops, backspace if you want to go back. So if you make a mistake, backspace, 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 and you can just, you know, continue snapping on. So I'm gonna snap there. So I know that this example is a little bit too big for a tutorial, but I just want to show you guys how how you can do this properly on a of this scale floor plan. So I'm just gonna do one more room, and you can always use F3 to just use the wireframe just for an easier understanding where you exactly in the scene, right? So yes, close the line. And the next thing you want to do, you don't right click and editable poly, you don't collapse this. What you want to do is apply a modifier, right? So you press E for editable poly, there we go. So I'm just gonna go from clay mode to default shading and use standard. Just press S back, there we go. So this is our floor, as you can see. And if you want, later on, if you're gonna have different materials for each room, you can cut, you can make a spline cut, refine it. So for example, if you go here, you can go right click on a line and sorry, not right click on a line, go on the vertex, and you can refine it and put points if you want to disconnect this, right? Usually, because this is so fast to do, you can just literally trace it on top if you want to, right? So for example, by the way, very important, just go on your vertex, Control A, right click, and just make sure that it's on corner, okay? Because we don't want any bezels. So if you want to, for example, this room, that room is gonna have a different material, right? So what you want to do is actually, you want to separate this spline. So for example, I would go something like this, right? And I would go to segment, and I would move this in the middle, right? And I would separate that thing, right? But you do that later on if you know that the floors are going to be all, different. Like for example, there's going to be, woodwork, that's going to be carpet, etc., etc. You can separate those later on. But first of all, you do this main floor. So the next thing you want to do is you isolate it back again, shift, you copy up, you delete the modifier on top, you drop it to 0. You can clone it if you want, but I just like to manually move it, see it, and just snap it down again. It's just easier for an eye. So the next thing you want to do is apply the skirting, right? So we're going to use the modifier called sweep. All right, so that is the modifier. The next thing you want to go is choose bar. All right, so this is going to be a very, very basic skirting, right? So we're going to put 10 centimeters in height. We're going to put 1.2 centimeters as thickness for the skirting. Sometimes you can go a little bit thicker, like 3.5 or 1.5 maximum, or 2. That's That's a quite thick skirt, and it really depends. If you have the specification from the client, how the skirting looks, what is the thickness, etc., you do the math, you put the numbers, right? But usually it's like in most cases, the height here in Europe is going to be from 10 to 15 centimeters. Usually in most cases is going to be 10 centimeters height. And for the thickness, it can be 1.5, it can be 2 centimeters. You know, sometimes I go a little bit less. Obviously, I never go 1 centimeter because this is just too thin. But 1.5, 2, you're good to go, right? So let's just say for this tutorial, I'm going to put 1.5 centimeters thickness. I'm just going to choose that is going to be on the bottom. Remove smooth section, smooth path. All right. And we need to... Okay, so this is going to be inside the wall, as you can see now. This is going to be outside the wall. So this is how you extract a skirting that fast, right? So I'm just going to choose a different color, for example. And I'm just going to remove shapes. So Shift S hides the shapes. Shift S unhides the shape. So I'm just going to hide it for now. Or you can go here and just use this button. You have all the other options here as well. All right. So this is the skirting. It's 10 centimeters height and it's 1.5 centimeters thickness, right? So the next thing you can do is, for example, if I'm gonna go to the top view somewhere here on the right, doesn't matter, I can do a custom shape. For example, you have a custom shape. I'm gonna do 10 centimeters. I'm gonna do 1.8 or 2, it doesn't matter, right? 2. And I'm just gonna do editable spline, or you can go editable spline from here, right? You can always go editable spline from here. I just have a shortcut, and then choose a vertice, and you can, you know, you can do some points and just go crazy with the shape if you want to. First of all, Control A, right click corner, right? So all of that is going to be corner, right? So let's just say I'm just going to create a very, I don't know, quick shape just to snapping there. I don't really need this point. And for example, I'm just gonna select this point and I'm gonna use fillet, something like that. And I'm just gonna fillet these guys too as well. Okay, I don't really need to fillet anything else, right? So that is my shape. Usually how I do it, if you want to do this professionally, right, don't put the shapes somewhere randomly, right? Like, the shape is somewhere there, it doesn't matter, nobody will know, right? But if you work in a team environment, and even if you work with yourself for yourself, I would recommend just to, you know, the shapes are not going to be renderable, but just create a rectangle, right? Just put that guy somewhere there or whatever, right? And just, I don't know, create a text and call shapes, right? Just decrease this guy. You know, you can apply, I don't know, a very obvious color, which is going to be maybe yellow, and just put that guy somewhere there, right? So the next time maybe someone is going to jump on your scene in the team or whatever, if you work in a team environment, you know, that person is going to go to maybe the top view. Either way, that person is going to be rotating off your scene. Maybe he is going to have to do some amends on your scene. Doesn't matter, right? But he will be able to see what's in your scene. You can even write a text note, what to do, what not to do. Just, you know, be mindful, especially when working in a team environment. Be mindful, you know, leaving messages in the scene. It's perfectly fine to do so. It's not a mess. You're just basically trying to, you know, structurize and leave a hint for another person that is going to be jumping on your scene and working. So for example, next time if the person is going to need to change or edit the spline, the skirting spline, the profile, you know, he's not going to be able to just look around where the hell is that main mother spline, right? He will literally see that this is the shape box and you have all the shapes here. Sometimes you're going to have the carving shapes. Whatever shapes you will have here, you can name them, you can put it in the box, everyone is going to see them, and it's easy to find, right? You don't really need to put even on the layer. It is just there. All right, so the next thing you can do if you want a custom shape on the skirt, and let's just say this is a very basic generic shape, I usually put like 1.2 centimeters, sorry, 0.2 centimeters of a bevel, and actually this is your skirting around the whole house. Now, very important, what I usually do next is go to the top view. So this is this curtain, is you kind of need to, you know, delete all of these, right? The entrances, right? Because if you even have a window or whatever, you will delete that. The next thing you will do is delete all of these lines as well, right? So very easy, just bam, even that one, but that's going to be the staircase. Don't worry about that for now. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that because that's going to go the door. That's the door, right? And I'm leaving there, right? So I'm deleting that. I can press the show end result. And the next thing you will do later on, when you're gonna add doors, so you're not gonna be able to, you will not need to move these guys, right? What you will need to do is to move these vertices here to the door frame, because that's gonna be your door there, right? So don't extrude it to the exterior. You're gonna have to do the same thing with the floor as well. You're gonna move it a little bit in front of the door, right? So basically, I'm just trying to show you how not to make a complete mess, right? So the next thing you can try to do if you have a custom shape, so whenever you added this guy, you can go to custom and you can pick that spline from here, right? So whenever you pick a spline, you can see that sometimes, you know, the orientation is screwed up in a way, right? And you need the cut facing that way. So what you can do, you can play around with these settings. So bam, either that way, just play around and see what works, right? So in my case, I just needed to mirror this on X and Z plane, right? So as you can see, that's your skirting, everything is fine, and it's going along the walls, right? So there you go. And I have the cuts there. I'm gonna that's gonna be a door frame and the door itself. I'm gonna be showing you guys later on how to model a door and how to rig it as well, just to, you know, to ease up your pain opening the doors later on. So I'm just gonna delete that spline there and that spline there, just to, you know, make this empty. And for this guy, if I press 1, I'm gonna go to vertice. Same thing, where the entrances are, you know, you're gonna move that to somewhere where the window stands. You're not gonna move through the windows into the exterior, right? So, but this is not destructible. You don't need to you know, collapse it. This is a spline, and like, I'm not against splines modeling with walls, but like I said, there is different situations that you will use splines, but there are mostly majority of situations that you're going to be using poly modeling for walls, because that is creating quads, and this is a clean geometry to work with later on, right? Because you have these, you know, window tops, window sills, door tops as well. With splines, you will need to create another spline in the door, move it up again, extrude it, blah blah blah. It's adding and adding on top of modifiers and clicks to do. With poly modeling is that simple, is that straightforward. If someone is gonna be jumping on your file, this is that simple. This wall is poly modeled. I can do whatever I want with it, right? I can slice it, I can attach it, whatever, right? I can bridge it. It's very straightforward, so to say. I don't have 10 or 8 or 5 modifiers on top of it, right? Now with the skirting, that's a different story, and with the floor, that's a completely different story. You can add a poly modifier and a UV on top, UV map on top, just because you're going to be adding textures later on. For the skirting, usually you're not going to be adding any UV, unwraps, anything. Most of the times it's just going to be only color, right? So, and it's not destructible, you can move it, right? So we have the skirting, so we have the floors, right? And now what we need is a ceiling. Now for the ceiling, you can extract this from the floor as well, but it's a little bit tedious in a way. So how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna isolate this the ceiling again, and I'm gonna use a spline again. Now, very important, if you want to save time, if you see a room, I know that all of these walls are completely straight because we were using the poly modeling technique, and we know 100% sure that this point and that point is going to be in the same location, right? So if you want to check that, for example, I'm going to go to vertice and I'm going to pick this point, press the move, the move key W, and check the X. 5568. 5568, as you can see there, that point there, 5568. So the whole edge here is in the same x-axis, right? So how can you save time when splining this again? Well, you use a line. If you have an even room, as you can see, you have cuts there, blah blah. But if you have a rectangular, just use a rectangular. Just take the first point and just snap it to there, bomb, right? You can add that, snap it to there, right? I'm just gonna switch to clay mode. It's gonna be easier to see a little bit. And as you can see, we have another rectangular, which is here, bomb. And for the splines, it's gonna be, you know, same approach. We're just gonna snap it, snap it, snap it, snap it. And same for these rooms. So I know that some people do just draw. I'm just gonna show you in a sec what I'm talking about here. So I'm just gonna backspace. I'm just gonna do that here. So I know that we're gonna have a staircase here, but I'm just gonna show this, you know, in a simple way here. So I'm just gonna snap it to there. And I know that I lost that point. Where did I snap it? Okay, so I snapped to the wrong point. Sorry, just a sec. So I just pressed backspace a couple of times there. All right, cool. So we have our spline. So how can you isolate? Either you press shapes and choose all the shapes, or you can just press all. If you isolate it, press the wall and press Control I, right? So it's gonna isolate, and then isolate this guy. And as you can see, we're missing one room here. So let me just go back for a sec and just snap it there, and there we go. So we select the wall, Control I, we select these guys, we select one spline, we go attach multiple, we choose splines, Control A, attach, yes, boom, there you go, and we centralize this. All right, so this is our ceiling. As you can see, the next thing we want to do, we are applying edible poly. All right, and we're just gonna switch to default shading, and I'm gonna make this, I don't know, gray for now, right? So this is our ceiling. As you can see, we can move it down, whatever. So what I was trying to say, some people like to model ceilings like this, but they just literally drag it through the whole apartment and use a shell, for example. That's their ceiling, okay? But with more complex projects, especially in the future, with full VR tour houses, whatever, modeling wise, this will not really cut it, and it's not a correct way of modeling this, right? The correct way of modeling the ceiling at the moment that I'm showing you here is this, right? So the next thing you need to do is very important. You select the poly modifier, you Control A, and you flip, right? This is very important because this house will have another floor on top, but I'm not going to be showing here how to do that. I'm just going to be showing that later on. So as you can see, the normals are facing the correct position, orientation now. So you're going to be standing there and the normals are going to be facing you, right? So for example, the bump maps and everything, normal maps will be working in the correct way. The normals are going to be near. Now, very important. If for whatever reason you will be exporting this to Unreal Engine, Unreal Engine likes thickness, all right? So the ceiling theoretically should have thickness, okay? But that's Unreal's issues, not mine, right? Max doesn't have this issue unless you do it wrong. But with Unreal, you should be able to apply thickness, and you should do that, right? But in Max, you don't really need to have thickness. Now with glass, if you're creating a glass material, that's a completely different story. You have to have thickness. Come on, guys. But with Unreal Engine, please try to add thickness. Now, first of all, my recommendation would be, you know, if you have a floor on top of a floor and your ceiling on the ground floor, for example, doesn't have thickness, still try it, import to 3ds Max and see if the shading is working correctly. Now, if you only have an apartment, right, and you only have one ceiling that is facing the exterior, so for example, you would have a sun there and it's literally facing this plane, Unreal can cause you some shading issues on this plane because the negative normals are facing the exterior sun rays, whatever, right? So I would, you know, suggest using, you know, maybe 5 centimeters of thickness. Sorry, wrong way. Something like that, right? And you export this to Unreal and it will work perfectly fine. Now, I'm not going to use shell. I'm just going to use it like this because we're not working now in Unreal, all right? So there you go. So that is our ceiling. And because I'm going to go to the top view, because we're going to have a staircase there, let's just say your house is going to have a staircase. So a very cool thing to do is, you know, you can literally drag this, you can show it off. You can literally drag this somewhere there. Maybe just, you know, delete that vertice, and just go to the top view and check out. So for example, I think the ceiling is going to end somewhere there, let's just say, but you will have to have a second floor plan, right? Which is the first floor plan. So I'm just going to add this somewhere there, snap it to that point. I'm going to snap it to that point and I will delete this point, right? And snap it to that point there. There you go. So now we have a niche that it's, you know, completely open, and that's going to be our staircase. So that is about it. We modeled and extracted the floors. We from the floors we extracted quickly a correct skirting, right? So we have the skirting all around the house. We can edit it in any way we want. And we have a ceiling, which is not destructible as well, right? And this will work in Max easily. Now, in regards of the flooring, right? So whenever you did this, whenever you have this finished, and let's just say, you know that, for example, this room, a dining room, whatever that is, it's gonna have a different material, right? Now, if you know that you're not gonna mend this later on, 100% sure, you can make a cut in edible poly here in the middle, right? And you can detach this polygon. You can detach it and just apply a different texture. That is the fastest way of doing it, right? Now, later on, if you will want to edit it, you know, you're gonna have to maybe respline it or check the, you know, the other vertices and duplicate it. But for now, I'm just gonna show you how you can, you know, manipulate this. So for example, you can do it in this way. So you can separate by creating points. For example, I'm gonna create 2 points. And I'm just gonna, let's just say I'm gonna show you in a more simple way. I'm just gonna delete this guy. And I don't know, just gonna create another point there maybe. And move it there, and just snap it to this guy, snap it to that guy, right? And I'm gonna add another point there, snap it to there, and maybe snap it to there, and snap it to there, right? So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select these vertices and just press increase the threshold a little bit and press weld. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move it there, right? And what I can do now is detach this spline, right? So now I can apply the same modifier in here, just drag and drop it, bam. So what I can do now is separate these floors, right? And they are not destructible, right? So for example, I'm just gonna centralize this. There we go. So as you can see, I can do it in this way, right? Or I can, you know, I'm just gonna, for example, let's just say, imagine, you know, we're doing the same thing here. Or we can do is this. It's a little bit maybe faster. So for example, I will track on top, right? I will track on top, go to 2 and just move that there, right? What I'm gonna do next is, so we don't need this area anymore of that plane, right? So we're gonna choose the vertices. I'm gonna click that vertice. Sorry, I'm gonna click that vertice, that, and I'm gonna press delete, right? The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press this guy, bam, bam, bam. All right, so this was a little bit faster. I'm just gonna drag with my mouse and just drop. And as you can see, we have separate rooms. So why I'm showing this intersection here? Because, for example, in these houses, in these standard UAK houses, for example, if you have a different material here, you will have some kind of a metal trim there. Okay, especially if this is going to be a VR tour, etc., right? You're going to be standing there and seeing everything 360. If that's going to be a carpet and that's going to be a wooden floor, you're going to have some kind of a metal trim separating that. Now, where the metal trim will go, it can, you know, the separation can be on the edge or this edge, or sometimes some carpenters make the cut in the middle. It really depends. For example, in my house, I have somewhere it's a little bit closer, especially if you have, for example, bathroom tiles, right? You would kind of want to, you know, end the tiles tidy like this, right? So the tile is gonna end there and you would make the cut there, right? But even one of my bathrooms, for example, have, so the tiling man who did the tiling job, he cut the tile around a little bit and inserted the tile a little bit into the door frame, so to say. So the tile didn't end there, it did end like 3 centimeters inside of the door frame, right? So it's a little bit weird. I wouldn't do that. I would rather continue the, you know, obviously it depends where the door is, right? So for example, let's just say, so that's the door frame, right? And let's just say, I'm just gonna show you a very quick example, right? I don't want to make this too long, but let's just say this is the door, right? So this is the door frame. I'm just doing this, sorry, very quickly, okay? So let's just say this is the door frame. Obviously, this is a very small door, but let's just say this is a door, right? So if the door is facing, let's just say that way, right? So from the hallway, you wouldn't want to see the tile coming through, right? So that's how you sort it out. So if the door is like 4 centimeters thickness, you can, you know, move it a little bit to that direction. But for example, let's just say the door is gonna open that way, right? So you would want to extend this material that is inside to that area there. You wouldn't want to see, you know, the carpet from the, for example, we have a wooden floor here and we have a tile. You wouldn't want to see the wooden floor going there, right? You kind of want to see the tiling going, you know, across the whole space here. So if you have a tile there, right, but the door opens inside, so you would want to end the tile somewhere there or a little bit like 3 centimeters onto the door, right? So that's how you sort out. So for example, I'm just gonna make this a selection set. So ground floor ceiling, right? So the next time I'm gonna, you know, want to select the ceiling, you know, because I'm gonna do this now. So select the ceiling, it's gonna select the ceiling. I hope, there you go. So right click, object properties, display as a box. Okay, so this is, now you can easily work on your house type inside, do whatever you want. The ceiling is still there, but if you want to select it, it's gonna be invisible. in a way. It is there, it will be renderable and everything else, but it's just in the box mode. You can go through it, you can see through it, nothing is clipping incorrectly, whatever, right? But whenever you want to select it again, just make a selection set. Bam. That's it. So, and as you can see, the door is going inside of this room, right? So my recommendation if would be to make the cut. So the cut should be made on that side there. So I'm just gonna isolate these guys. So I'm gonna click this guy, and I'm gonna literally, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete that vertex there and that vertex there. And the next thing I'm gonna do is select this guy, go to the segment, and I'm just gonna add to there. Bam, there you go. And I would add a metal trim somewhere there, right? There we go. So that's going to be your metal trim there, separating. Obviously this is a very rough example, but this is how you should do it, right? So the door is going to be opening into that direction. So let me just quickly move it like this. So the door is going to be opening there. As you can see, this is a new room, this is a new space, right? And this wood flooring, whatever you're gonna have there, is gonna be continuing to the door end, right? So this is how you correctly sort out where is gonna be the cut, right? So yeah, I don't want to go too long. I could go hours and hours and hours on these topics, obviously, and you know that because I made so many videos already with long boring courses. So I'm just gonna try to keep this like this for now. All right, so yeah, so just to finalize, we created a floor from a spline, we created extracted this curtain, and we also created the ceiling, and I showed you how to, you know, roughly separate the floors with different materials. All right, so in the next video, honestly, I'm not sure what we're gonna be doing. Maybe I'm gonna be showing you how to model a, you know, a basic door, how to rig it and add it in to the scene, so you would guys, you know, understand and how to use it in the future. So thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you then.